Hello and welcome to this video on IGCSE economics. This is chapter 11 where we'll be talking about price elasticity of demand. Right, so this chapter talks about PED or price elasticity of demand, and basically this is going to be measuring how responsive the quantity demanded of a product is to a change in price. In other words, what we'll be talking about in this chapter is the responsiveness. So I'm just going to write that down. Right, so I'm just going to write that down as responsiveness to make it easier for you. Responsiveness of quantity demanded to changes in price. So what this basically means is that when there is a price change, for example, when there's a price increase, how does that affect the quantity demanded? By how much does it decrease? Because we know that when the price increases, demand should decrease, but by how much? So that's what we're measuring here. That when there's a price change, by how much does quantity demanded either increase or decrease? So if there's an increase in price, by how much does quantity demanded decrease? And if there's a decrease in price, by how much does quantity demanded increase? And you'll be able to see that in just a moment. Now, how do we calculate PED? So PED is calculated by this formula here, which is basically percentage change in quantity demanded divided by percentage change in price. Now, in order for you to get the percentage change, so only to get the before that, this is how you can write the formula in brief: percentage change in quantity demanded over percentage change in price. So if you write like this, you can remember it easily. But first you need to know how do you get the percentage change. So this one, you're going to say the new minus the old divided by the old times 100. So don't forget this: new minus old divided by old times 100. And remember, you need to do this for quantity demanded, so percentage change for quantity demanded, and also the percentage change for price. And then you're going to divide those two to get PED. If you forget this formula, one of the teachers said you just say no, I don't know, and then you'll be able to remember this formula. So no, I don't know. So new minus old over old. That's how you get the percentage change. And we're going to do an example in order for you to see this. Right, so let's move on to something else down here. Right, so let's look at this example here. So a firm reduces the price of its product from 100 to 90. The quantity demanded increases from 1,000 to 1,500. So what is the price elasticity of demand? So remember, you want to start with change in quantity demanded over a percentage change in price. So we're going to start by calculating the percentage change in quantity demanded. All right, so let's go to quantity. So the quantity demanded increases from that to that. So this is the new, this is the old. So you're going to say the new, which is 1,500, minus the old, which was 1,000. Divide this by the old, which is 1,000, and you get that, and then multiply this, by 100. And you're going to find out that this is 500 over 1,000 times 100. So this is basically 1 over 2. So this is 50%. So this is the quantity demanded. So I'm going to write here 50%. So 50%. Let's move on and calculate now the percentage change in price. Again, the new price this time is 90 minus the old price, which is 100, divided by 100, and then multiply this by 100. 90 minus 10 is negative 10, divided by the 100, and then multiplied by 100. And if you calculate this, you get minus 10. So this is the number that you're going to take. This is the percentage change in price, and put it down here. So minus 10%, and if you calculate, you get minus 5. So this is your PED right here. So that's an example of how you can calculate the PED in a question. I took this question from one of the IGCSE papers. I believe it is the specimen paper, or just one of the papers there. So that's how you can calculate PED. And we're going to see now what PED, what the value of PED you get basically means to a trader or producer. Now, because the demand curve is a negative slope, so the demand curve is a negative slope. If you forgot how it looks like, that's how it looks like. So it's a negative slope, and because of this slope, the PED is always going to be negative, like we found here. It's always going to be negative. So for example, here it's -5. So PED is always going to be -5. And this basically shows the inverse relationship between price and demand. So when one falls and the other one increases. But for the sake of economics, we are going to ignore the minus sign. So we ignore the minus sign and just look at the number. So for example, if the PED is -2, we're just going to say the PED is 2. And that basically means for 1% change in price, there's going to be a 2% change in quantity demanded if the PED is -2, for example. All right, let's look at some examples of PEDs that we can get. So we have, this is 5 different elasticities that we can find. We have what that's called elastic demand. This one is any number that's greater than 1. So ideally, remember we are ignoring the negative sign. So this means it's greater than -1 if you want to include the minus sign. And this would be elastic demand. And this basically means for percentage change in quantity, the percentage change in quantity demanded is greater than the percentage change in price. So basically, a small change in price leads to a bigger change in quantity demanded. And it says it's illustrated by a shallow demand curve. So I'm going to draw that here first. Don't worry, we're going to have all the graphs here and be able to see how each one of them looks like. So this one is a shallower graph. It's quite shallow like that. So this is elastic PED. And then the second one is inelastic demand. And this one means basically that the quantity, the percentage change in quantity demanded is smaller than the percentage change in price. And this one is shown by a steep curve. So this curve for inelastic demand would probably look like this. It would be more steep, so steeper than that. And this will be inelastic PED. Inelastic PED. Okay. Then we have what is called unit elastic PED. And this basically means the percentage change in quantity demanded is the same as the percentage change in price. And we're going to look at that later on, that when the PED is unit elastic, then the total revenue does not change in spite of changes in price. And then we have what is called perfectly elastic. So perfectly elastic would look like this. Perfectly elastic would look like this. It would be something like a straight horizontal line. So this is perfectly elastic. And I'm going to tell you something about this perfectly elastic PED. So the perfectly elastic PED, for this one, it looks like it's an E without the top bar there. So that's how you know which one is perfectly elastic. And then for perfectly inelastic, it's going to be a straight vertical line. So this one looks like an I. So this is perfectly inelastic. It looks like an I. Perfectly inelastic PED. Right, I left out the unit elastic graph because there is no agreement among economists on how that one can look. Usually it's a point on the graph, which I'm going to show you in just a moment. All right, so let's move on and think about what determines PED. And there are several factors that determine PED, one of them being availability of substitutes. So a commodity that has many substitutes will be price elastic, or will have price elastic demand. So it would be elastic. So for example, a commodity that has many substitutes means that when the price of this commodity increases, consumers are going to switch to the other product, and so the quantity demanded for this product is going to decrease by a lot. And that's why when there's many substitutes, it's price elastic. The second is the proportion of income spent. When a product takes a very small fraction of income, for example, salt, it tends to have price inelastic demand because consumers really feel the difference in the change of price. But for example, something like a car, which is quite expensive, will have price elastic demand because a 10% increase in the price of a car will be a large amount, and it's going to reduce the number of people buying the car by a big amount. And then we have necessity versus luxury. Necessities are more likely to have to be price inelastic, but luxuries would tend to be to have elastic demand, again for the same reason that they take a lot of money. Then we have addictive products with addictive nature, like cigarettes or coffee. These ones also tend to have inelastic demand compared to those that are not addictive. And we have products that can be sorry, we have products that we can postpone purchase, like furniture, TV, fridge. These ones, because you can postpone the purchase, they're going to have price elastic demand. And then, of course, when you're talking about goods, if you narrow down the product, you're going to find that it is price elastic, but sometimes it may not be price elastic. For example, if you talk about food, food may be price inelastic, but if you go into specifics of food and, for example, talk about exotic cheese, this one may be price elastic. So because it's definitely going to be food, but it becomes a luxury. And then we have time period. In a longer period of time, consumers have more time to look for alternatives and also to notice the price change, and therefore because of that, a longer time period makes products more price elastic. All right, let's move on to PED and total revenue. Here I just want to introduce you to this very simple formula here, which I'm going to write up here. So I'm going to write EOIS. So don't remember this. I'm going to say elastic or elastic opposite and inelastic same. Okay, let me write that better so that we get all the letters. So elastic opposite, inelastic same. So what you're saying here is that when PED is elastic, price and revenue will go opposite direction. So one will be rising and the other one increasing. And when PED is inelastic, price and revenue will go the same direction. So when price is increasing, revenue is increasing. And that's what we're talking about here. And of course, the last one is, which we've already talked about, is when PED is unit elastic. And this one we said no change in revenue. So no revenue change. So no change in revenue. Right. So let's just go through these notes just to confirm that. So when PED is elastic, price and total revenue move in opposite directions. So just like we've said here, move in opposite directions. And when PED is inelastic, price and total revenue move in the same direction. And when PED is unit elastic, total revenue does not change when price changes. Now, this knowledge is very important for decision makers, especially producers and governments. Producers are going to use PED to try and make distinctive products. So this one is basically to try and reduce substitutes and therefore to make demand more price inelastic. This is advantageous to them. And also governments are going to use PED to predict taxes and subsidies. So they know the impact of a tax. If they want to reduce quantity, they want to tax elastic goods. If they want to raise revenue, they want to tax price inelastic goods. All right, so that is going to be very useful for governments and producers. We're going to look at that in detail also much later on when we look at government intervention in business. Right, now the last thing I want to do here is I want to take you through what is called a straight line demand curve. So straight line demand curve. So straight line demand curve. This is very important for you to remember. So I'm going to draw here a demand curve that is a bit straight, and I'm going to draw that straight demand curve there. So this is called a straight line demand curve. So it touches both axes, and I'm going to pick a point in the middle here, and I'm going to try to go down here and call this point M. So M here will be the midpoint. So if you divide this line into two, that would be the midpoint. And on a straight line demand curve, I just want to say that elasticity of demand is not constant on a straight line demand curve. The section from here all the way to here, from here to here, this section here is price elastic. So price elastic. Here at this point is unit elastic. This is a very important point. So this is unit elastic. And from there to there, it's inelastic. I'm just going to add two more things. At this point here, remember this is 1. This is above 1. So this is greater than 1. This is 1. And this is below 1. And at this point here, the PD is 0. And at this point here, the PD is infinity. Right. Now, if a firm wants to maximize So a firm wants to maximize revenue. So if a firm wants to maximize revenue, they should be selling at the point M. So selling at M where PD is 1. So don't forget that information. If a firm wants to maximize revenue, they should be selling at this point here where it is unit elastic, where they should be selling at that point there where PD is 1. So they should be selling at that point there on their graph. So this is the quantity they need to be producing, and this is the price they need to be selling if the intention is to maximize revenue. Remember, this is for revenue maximization. So they are maximizing revenue. Later on, when you deal with A-level economics, I'm going to show you where a firm needs to be producing if they want to maximize profit. For now, just remember, if the firm wants to maximize revenue, they need to be producing at the point where PED is 1. That's where they make the most money, not the most profit. They make the most revenue. All right, don't forget to subscribe to my videos and share the videos with your classmates. You may want to watch this 2 or 3 times just to acquaint yourself with what we are talking about here. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section. See you in my next video.